Madam Speaker, this is a very difficult bill. This is a very difficult subject for us to deal with, because in this case, the sanctity of life, something that all of us cherish, it conflicts with the liberty interest protected under Section 7 of the Charter. This is one of those difficult times where you have to recognize that your own religious views, your own moral views are not the ones that you can simply impose on Canadians. You have to recognize that charter rights are sacrosanct. And sometimes as a member, those are difficult moments. I personally, Madam Speaker, have said before that I would not choose medically assisted dying for myself, nor would I encourage any family member to avail themselves of the opportunity of medically assisted dying. But I also fully respect the right of every Canadian to choose for his or herself whether or not this right should be exercised for them. In the Carter decision, the Supreme Court of Canada upheld that under Section 7 of the Charter, there was a certain subgroup of Canadians whose liberty interests were violated by the existing provisions in the Criminal Code on not assisting someone to commit suicide. The Supreme Court in Carter told us that there was a subsection of Canadians, those who were in constant enduring pain and suffering that could not be alleviated by medical treatment reasonably acceptable to them, that had the right to have their death hastened by having medical professionals assist them in doing so. And so our government in the last Parliament brought forward Bill C-14. I had the privilege of being the chairman of the Standing Committee on Justice and Human Rights. And we heard from a great cross-section of Canadians. We heard from those who represented the disabled community and those who believed in the right to die with dignity. We heard from members of the clergy of all faiths, and we heard from university professors and lawyers and doctors. And we heard from a great cross-section of Canadians that had very diverse and different opinions. And what we tried to do was craft a law that brought Canadian society together, that protected the vulnerable, but yet still afforded everyone the right that the Supreme Court had recognized in Carter, which was the right to decide for yourself whether to terminate your life in the event you're in enduring pain and suffering that cannot be alleviated by medical treatment reasonably acceptable to you. We had to recognize as well that when we dealt with the Carter decision in Bill C-14, Canada was at the beginning of a list of countries dealing with medically assisted dying. There were very few countries in the world that had gone where Canada was going. There was Belgium, there was Holland, there was Uruguay, and there were a few American states, and that was it. And Canadian society needed to come to terms with medically assisted dying and learn more about the process before we went too far. That is why at the time I supported a clause in the bill that said that medically assisted dying was limited to those whose natural life, the end of their natural life, was reasonably foreseeable. But we knew at the time, Madam Speaker, that that was going to change over time, that as Canadian society looked at the experience of medically assisted dying, the bill itself would come back for review before Parliament and would need to change. At the Justice Committee, Madam Chairman, Madam Speaker, we proposed a number of important amendments to that bill. We inserted, by unanimous agreement at the committee, conscience rights to make sure that doctors and nurses and pharmacists whose own beliefs would be offended by medically assisted dying were not compelled to participate in the process. We said that Parliament would need to review some subjects that we were not dealing with. The issue of mental illness on its own, the issue of mature minors, and probably most importantly, the issue of advanced directives for those suffering with dementia. We also, Madam Speaker, adopted a motion that palliative care had to be part of that review, because nobody should have their death hastened because palliative care treatment is not available to them in Canada.